It doesn't escalate from here. Look at the flag. Yeah, Guy, I see
there it is.
You pointing
Mexican
it out.
flag can,
This is criminal activity that I hope people are held accountable for. And I'm talking about the riots right here.
Where are the cops?
The disastrous LA riots turned Mexican insurrection has now become an unfortunate reminder to all Americans of just how dangerous liberal policy and liberal leadership can be. And now, as LA city streets are burning, the question must be asked: does America need immigration reform? I believe the answer to that question is yes, and right here, right now, on American Advocates, I'm going to go over the 5 biggest changes to immigration policy here in America that I believe need to happen in order to maintain the health of our American society, the safety of our American country, and most importantly, to promote the America First agenda. I have been meaning to make this video now for a few days, and then when I was scrolling on social media and I saw on the Benny Johnson show that he had Texas Congressman Gill on talking about the border, that's what reminded me of the fact that I wanted to put this video out because yes, immigration reform is 100% necessary, and these LA riots have been a perfect demonstration of that. Take a listen to what Gill said when it comes to the border situation.
Well, here's the problem with both illegal and legal immigration. You see on the illegal side, we've had open borders for a long time. And honestly, we've had open borders for before Joe Biden was in office.
Correct. Yes.
Basically, if you think of for my entire life, we've had a border crisis, except during the first Trump presidency where you saw real meaningful, tangible efforts to secure the border. Of course, Democrats fought him. We have other massive buckets of legal immigration that have nothing to do with what is in America's best interest. They're diversity lotteries, or that's what they're called at least, where we're basically picking people randomly. That's a problem.
We should not be picking immigrants and allowing them to come into our country at random. Every single immigrant needs to be screened. And I know that that's asking for a lot of work, but that's what the American people expect. Japan is a great example, actually, of a country that has very strict immigration policy. They don't just let anybody in. You need to be able to prove your worth, and you need to be able to prove to them that you're going to contribute positively to their society. We should actually be modeling some of our immigration policy after them, in my opinion. And so what does a policy like this mean for immigration in America? Gill goes on to expand on this thought on the Benny Johnson show. Take a listen again.
What we don't want is infinity immigration from third world countries, particularly of cheap labor. And that's what we've had for a long time. I think that the goal, whenever somebody comes into this country, is to fully assimilate into American society. And for that to happen, we need a drastic reduction in all forms of immigration.
And you know, his statement there got me thinking, so I wound up just pulling up a little Google search here to figure out the numbers of people coming into our country legally each year. And it turns out it varies. As you can see here, in the fiscal year of 2022, mind you, this was during Joe Biden's presidency where they were letting anybody and everyone come in, 2.6 million immigrants entered the United States through authorized channels. This figure includes individuals who became lawful permanent residents, green card holders, as well as those entering with temporary visas like work or study visas. And as I went on to do research, it wound up pointing to the fact that this 2.6 million legalized citizen stat was 67% more than the previous fiscal year. There doesn't seem to be a set limit on the amount of immigrants who can enter this country. And this is a twofold problem. First and foremost, what I propose America needs to do right now in order to put America first, restore American culture and society, and protect our nation, we need to shut down the border entirely. Shut down immigration altogether. And we need to do this for an extended period of time. I would recommend at least 1 entire year, maybe even 2 full years, while we can redraw immigration policy and laws and figure all of this out. Because what we have going for us now is not working, and if we continue to let our country be flooded by immigrants, legal or otherwise, we are at risk for losing our American culture and our American way. And this may seem like a very harsh idea to some people, but this is the reality of the world we are living in. And I am so sick and tired of America being the foolish enough country to have enough pity or empathy, whatever you want to call it, to think more about the needs of the people coming into our country than to think about the needs of our country itself. It's time that we stop prioritizing the rest of the world and start prioritizing ourselves. And so if we can shut down the border and all immigration into our country for at least a year or two and reform the immigration laws, what we need to do after the fact when we eventually reopen immigration into America is we need to determine a set amount of immigrants allowed into our country each year, make that a law, and make it one that cannot be changed or violated. Sanctuary cities are jurisdictions, typically cities, counties, or states, that have policies limiting their cooperation with federal immigration enforcement agencies. These policies aim to protect low-priority immigrants from deportation, while still handing over those who have committed serious crimes. Sanctuary cities have become nothing more than a tool used by the Liberal Party, who seek to use it to protect all of the illegal immigrants in our country who do not belong here and who are eroding our American culture. And yes, when Democrat politicians are running for office, they all of a sudden don't really bring up the idea of sanctuary cities or using them. They don't like to talk about the idea of protecting illegal immigrants and keeping them in our country. This prime example right here of the Kamala Harris doublespeak points that out very well.
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. And I actually, as Attorney General, informed California law enforcement that ICE detainers are not mandatory. I disagreed with it, and that's why I issued that policy for the sheriffs and the district attorneys of California, telling them that these were not mandatory.
What I especially like under that video that was shared on X is Doge AI's description of it, exposing Kamala Harris even more. California's defiance under Kamala Harris wasn't progressive, it was lawless sabotage. As Attorney General, Harris weaponized sanctuary policies to shield criminal aliens from ICE, undermining federal authority and endangering communities. The Lake and Riley Act now mandates detention for illegals charged with crimes like theft or assault, proving how reckless her obstruction was. Trump's 2025 enforcement surge, deploying National Guard units under Title X authority, exposes the chaos Harris enabled: violent protests, federal facilities under siege, and open rebellion against immigration law. California's collapse into anarchy under Newsom-Harris policies is a warning. Thank you, Doge AI. That is completely correct, and that is why my second proposal is that sanctuary cities needs to come to an end. Because what's happening right now in California, according to the liberals, according to Kamala Harris, who was running for president last year, is exactly what they planned for and exactly what they want.
I think that these folks are really mired in rolling back the clock in time, and that's not going to happen. California represents the future, and they don't like it, but there you go.
That's right. What's going on in California, the state that they deem the future of America, fits their agenda perfectly. They don't even really try to hide it from you. This is what they want for America.
We need to bring down this empire once and for all. All right. Burn it down! Burn it down! Burn it down! Burn it down! Burn it down!
This video is going viral of this female U.S. soldier defying the U.S. military and taking a stand with the Mexican insurrectionist rioters. This is what she says out loud publicly.
They're not pawns for Donald Trump's agenda. Why now? It's because the military was called upon innocent protesters. We, in our oath to serve, we serve the people of the United States. The Constitution, these constitutional rights are being stripped and just denied, and the military will not be pawns to that. So I'm calling upon the conscience of military members who served previously and now. We have a conscience, we have mind, and we have a duty and moral obligation to say no.
And this is the problem when it comes to immigrants and allowing them to have all of the same access and abilities as natural-born U.S. citizens. They join the military, they become law enforcement officers. But in many cases, there's still an inherent bias against America during scenarios like this, as they instead decide to remain loyal to their place of birth, their country of origin, or at the very least, they often remain too sympathetic and empathetic to people who are in a similar boat as them. And so what am I proposing? I'm proposing that all first-generation immigrants in this country, at the very least, are not allowed to enter the U.S. military or serve in a law enforcement officer role. Now, a discussion can be made for if we should even ban second-generation immigrants from holding the same role as well, as oftentimes immigrants will come here, have children, and still raise their children to not like or love America. It can oftentimes take 3, 4, or 5 generations worth until that is kind of stamped out of them if that's how they're being raised, and until the generations warm up to just how amazing America is and actually grow to love the country. But as of right now, I just wouldn't want it to be that strict, so I am only proposing first-generation immigrants to not be allowed to serve in the military or join law enforcement, with the exception of if a draft is needed under dire circumstances in the U.S. military. And I know this seems harsh, it's discriminatory, yes, but this is what happens when you are too lax and too loose, and you allow too many immigrants into this country who love their culture more than the American culture, who fail to assimilate. It's a problem, and we cannot allow it to continue.
Now that Republicans are back in control, can we expect to see some type of immigration investigation into Congresswoman Ilhan Omar? There was a report, this was a story I broke, and it's since been confirmed that she married her brother and committed immigration fraud. Can you speak to whether or not there's any investigations into Congresswoman Omar's immigration fraud via the marriage to her brother? And whether or not her citizenship could potentially be revoked if you guys also find that she did, in fact, commit immigration fraud and student loan fraud?
I can't discuss any investigation.
Okay. All right. Well, I figured I would just ask because a lot of people always wonder why we have jihadists serving in Congress, why we have anti-American immigrants serving in Congress who are, perpetuating this open borders mentality.
We're aware of that situation, but I can't discuss it.
Ilhan Omar came here as a refugee and abused the immigration policy and our marriage laws by marrying her own brother. It's a disgusting reality if true, and that leads me to my final point, which is the fact that not only should first-generation immigrants to this country not be allowed to serve in our military or in our law enforcement, but first-generation immigrants should also not be allowed to hold any form of high political office in this country. They already can't become the president. That's a law for a reason. However, I don't think they went far enough. I think this is one of the most major reforms needed in this country, besides limiting immigration, because we have too many foreign immigrant politicians now who are very open about being loyal to their countries and are not pro-America in the slightest. Expanding even on Ilhan Omar, take a listen to her speech just a few years ago about repealing the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. And if that sounds familiar to you, yes, that was the one that Trump reinstated in order to be able to deport so many of the very violent, very dangerous illegal immigrants out of this country in his first 2 months in office. Listen to how Ilhan Omar describes this act, though, and what she thinks about it.
The Alien American Act allows the United States president to determine how and if all foreign nationals should be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed in the event of a war. There are a number of troubling and scary aspects of this law. First, war is not defined in this act, allowing it to be loosely interpreted. Second, this act completely bypassed the judicial process, ignoring due process and the right of appeal. And lastly, foreign national refers to anyone who's not a U.S. citizen, even if they might be a lawful resident in the United States. Meaning, even if you have lived in the United States legally for 20 years, built a community, started a family, for whatever reason not have gained citizenship, you would be subject to apprehension, detention, or deportation without due process.
The irony of all of this is that this speech did not age well when it comes to the current LA riots situation. Because if you're really being honest with yourself right now, we need that act to be used once again, and President Donald Trump needs to be able to move in and to be able to remove these violent rioters out of the streets, to quell this Mexican insurrection, and to be able to deport them all back to the country that they so proudly wave their flags of while they're burning down our American streets. And she has the nerve to complain that no matter what the citizenship status is of these immigrants, that they can be detained and even deported. The fact of the matter is, right now, what we have going on in Los Angeles is being fueled by a lot of illegal immigrants, but those illegal immigrants are no doubt being aided by legal immigrants as well. The loyalty is running deep, and we're seeing the problem with that too. But pressing forward, I want to double down on this thought that no first-generation immigrants should be allowed to serve in Congress, Senate, or as governor, for instance. I want to bring up this speech also regarding the LA riots delivered by immigrant Pramila Jayapal. Take a listen.
I have one word for you, and yes, I'm here as the ranking member of the Immigration Subcommittee, but I am also here as a naturalized citizen and a proud immigrant doing immigrant rights in the streets for 20 years before. I have one word for you today. Enough of these mass ICE raids that are sweeping up innocent people of every legal status, tearing apart families and our communities.
So as you can see, once again, there is an inherent problem with allowing this. Because these first-generation immigrants who have now obtained power in the form of a political office right here in America are, of course, sympathizing with other immigrants. They don't even seem to care if they're illegal immigrants. They are not taking an American first stance. They are not choosing the American people over the immigrants here who are wreaking havoc in the street, and they're not even concerned with preserving our way of life or our American culture. That is the problem with allowing them to serve in office and why it should not be allowed. But what are your thoughts and opinions? Do you think I'm going too far with this immigration reform idea? Or do you share my opinion that these LA riots have just been a giant awakening experience for all natural-born U.S. citizens as we continue to watch them wreak havoc in California? Comment down below what your thoughts are and subscribe to American Advocates for more.